Ignition sequence. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have liftoff.
Hi guys, I'm Rochelle Humes and this is Ladies Who Launch. Each episode will dive into the journeys of aspirational women who started from scratch and built their dreams into thriving empires. These are the founders, the risk takers, the go-getters that are changing the landscape and making their mark in the world of business. We're here to celebrate their wins, dive into their challenges and share the invaluable lessons they've learned along the way. Ladies Who Launch is about sharing the inspiring stories that could empower you to take your own leap. So get ready to be uplifted by the resilience, creativity, and unstoppable determination of today's most extraordinary women. This is your girls group chat for business and beyond. My guest today has completely redefined the way we think about wellness and connection, using her platform to make real meaningful impacts. She's a true leader, bringing together her passion for activism and business in the most inspiring way. Please welcome to the podcast, Sabrina Elba. Just a quick one before we start. If you like listening to this episode, which I know you're going to, please like it and subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to share it to your group chat. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you.
I'm
excited.
I'm honestly so pleased we're doing this. I feel like we get to see each other at events here and there, and maybe talk to each other a bit, but it's never enough. And never, like, you learn so much about somebody when you actually just sit down and talk through their life. And there's no dinner long enough to be able to do this.
No, and we've been saying we want to hang out. This is going to be our
there we go. We've
official
actually found a date that works.
Exactly.
Go us. I love starting these conversations with going way back when, and I feel when you think about your roots, I feel like that's how we find out how a person's shaped. And for you, where did it all start? I know that it started in Canada.
Yeah.
Tell me.
I'm a Canadian.
Yes, you are, girl. Tell me a bit about your upbringing.
Oh, it's funny because people do ask that all the time, like, but I am so far off from where I maybe thought I would be or planned I would be, or the little town that I grew up in, which isn't that small, but feels so small compared to London, that I always think, like, it must have shaped me somehow, but I may not have realized it as it was happening, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I grew up in Vancouver, Canada. I was born East Coast Canada, which is like Montreal. My French is very bad, so I left way too early. And I've got like tons of siblings, tons of cousins. I have 2 brothers, 2 sisters. Grew up with lots of family around me. My dad passed away when I was quite young, so it was my mom really, like, trucking along, taking care of us, and just getting by in this city. And I was at uni thinking I was going to do law, and and then that was at the cusp where I decided to move to London because I'd met this boy. And if you'd asked me before I moved, what was I going to do or what were my plans, I probably would have said something completely different. So I always think it's interesting that we attribute so much to our early lives, but life is never a plotted course, it's always going to have like these bends around the corners that you didn't see coming. And I know myself so much better now, and I'm so much more comfortable with myself than I was in, like, my early 20s or whatever.
Gosh, that's a tricky time to navigate your early 20s, isn't it?
It is. I feel like our generation was tough too, because there was a lot. I feel there's some grace given now to women at a young age in terms of you need to have your career and your marriage and your children all set by, the time you're 20. Like, we used to say that when we were, my generation used to say, oh, by the time I'm 25, I'm going to have 3 kids. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Well, and newsflash, I used to say that and think, oh my God, this is it. I want a young family. And I did have a young family. But guess what? I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
right.
And you're supposed to. So that's the other thing. You do that. And then you're like, I don't understand how this all works. And, I'm still supposed to work, and I'm a baby with a baby.
You're a baby with a baby in a sense, right? But I feel today although there's so many more challenges in terms of like social media and stuff for younger generations, but there is somewhat more grace when it comes to don't rush to have anything because you feel pressured. Do it when it's right.
Yeah.
Do it when you want to do it, right? And I am thankful now. I have kind of resisted my like African immigrant family calling for my marriage from the day I was like 17.
It's
do you know what I mean?
Funny, isn't it? It's so funny. And that's also the same in West Indian culture. It's like you settle down, you're raised to be a mother and to be a wife and to have this sort of flourishing family. And it doesn't look that way for everybody.
No.
But that's kind of what it's instilled in you, that's success.
Yeah. And it's funny because my uncle and aunties have backed off now, because first it was me, right? And it was like, I got married at 30 and then my cousins, they're like, okay, we're still pressuring them, and then they're not married and they're past 30. So I think they're like, you know what? We just give up. We don't understand this
please
generation.
do give up. Please do.
Yeah, exactly. There's more in life.
Yes, it feels a lot easier when you give up.
But also, if that's your choice, it's your choice, right? It's the problem was that you felt it boxed in to make a decision at a certain point in your life. And I only say that to say that, you know, maybe that would have been more of my focus growing up in a small town, like, you know, being around the guys that I've been around my whole life. As opposed to like, let me move to London and let me actually travel and, you know, figure out what I want to do really, because do I want to be in an office? And at that point I was like, probably not.
And do I have bigger desires than here? You know, and that's okay, that I kind of want to see the world and I want to do things a little bit differently. You said that you thought you were going to pursue law, which is so interesting. I can imagine you as like a bad bitch ass lawyer. I love that. I feel like you would be like the powerful but friendly one, you know, the approachable lawyer.
And I was like super adamant about it when I was younger. So I find it quite interesting that I, you know, did a bit of a turnaround, because I only did philosophy or my bachelor's in philosophy because it was good for the LSAT, right? Like it wasn't. So I sort of planned my life in that trajectory. But I think once I started to understand a bit more about what you know, the typical lifestyle of a corporate lawyer would be, you know, long office days. And I just didn't feel that that was necessarily me. I wanted to move to Toronto. I was like, I know that there's more to the world than Vancouver. And Vancouver is an amazing city. It's still my favorite city in the world. But I just had this urge to like explore first. And I'm so glad I did, because I realized very quickly that actually I'm an entrepreneur. And I think that's why I was kind of impatient with the idea of, you know, doing one thing. Yeah. It's because I love the idea and the flexibility of being able to do, okay, well, I want to do this. And if that does well, then I want to do this. And then I want to do this.
And also, and I think there's we were talking about grace before, but there's so much more grace with that now too, because I think when I was younger, even when I love performing, right? And I'd go to singing lesson and I knew that I wanted to perform at that time, but everyone wanted you to pick. It's like, do you act? Do you sing? Do you dance? I'm like, I quite like doing all of it.
Right.
And I remember that being quite kind of, oh, okay, you want to give it all a go. I'm like, well, why not? Let's see what sticks. You know? And I think it's kind of, we're in a world now where people are really embracing the idea of being an entrepreneur, and I think that feels so freeing. Yeah, exactly that.
You're like literally the definition of that. And I can't imagine when you were younger, like it must have been like all lights on all the time and like
I just want to do it all, you know. There was
but you also, there's pressure to like do it all really well without being able to kind of stumble and learn. You know what I mean? Whereas I'm like very thankful. I had lots of stumbling.
There's a reason that I didn't pursue acting. Let me tell you.
I don't know.
Honestly,
I'll believe it when I see it.
No, you don't. You do not want to see it. It didn't never see the light of day. Did you ever feel? We talk about raising a family and having that kind of background that really wants that for you, and that kind of, you know, marriage and, you know, the pressure of that. Did you ever feel pressure to pursue a certain career? Were your family really wanting you to be a lawyer?
Yeah, I think that's definitely where that came from. Because people will ask, you know, well, why'd you want to do that? And I'm like, because my mom told me I had to. You know, there was a little bit of that. Like my sister was going to be a doctor. I was going to be a lawyer. My brother was going to be an engineer. She had decided that for us. But I think also, I mean, law was always attractive in the sense that, first of all, mid through this philosophy degree, like I was loving it. And I loved the idea of arguing being, you know, a type of science, and how you could look at it almost mathematically to, you know, what you do in logic throughout philosophy is you put an argument in steps. If you do A and then B, you'll most likely get A as a winner of that conversation or whatever that is, right? And I loved that. And I still to this day, like Idris will be the first to tell anyone, she loves to argue. And it's not because I love to argue. I just love to see the logic and find the logic in things. And I'm like, what does that really make sense? I don't know if you're going to win this one. You know?
I could picture you two having an argument and you've got your like clipboard out. I'm like, well, this is A. Yeah. A's going to get us to C here, Idris. So keep up.
Exactly.
To have the sort of journey you've had and to be where you are now, I suppose it's something you could have never predicted. What was your first job when you had this idea of law and that was pressure from the family?
My first job was a bit weird.
We like weird.
This is like you're not asking like like you wanted my first
job.
job.
Yeah.
This is so funny. So I was always a taller young person, you know, like I was tallest in my class, and I'm like, I'm just a tall girl. Like I'm 5'10". Everyone always asks me how tall I am. And I looked older because of that, especially like I feel our generation, like, you know, it's not like we were all in makeup and everything. Like we all looked like babies, but height made a big
My daughter's like this. She's like
difference.
By far the tallest girl in her year.
And it ages her probably a bit, right? Doesn't it? So I had someone approach me and ask if I would consider buying, like it was this big gas station chain called Esso. And if I would consider going to the gas stations and buying cigarettes and saying I forgot my ID to see if they would sell it to me, to stop people selling cigarettes to underage.
Stop. That is so interesting.
That's so weird.
That is so, I love this though. I mean, there's a job in anything, guys.
Why would I do that? But it's funny because I always think like that job put in my head that I was an adult. I'm an older person and I can convince people. And I got really good at convincing people that I was like 21 at 16.
You would go into these stores and basically buy cigarettes?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, and I got away with it a lot, which is, you know, it's not a good thing. But it's funny because I do realize that it put this kind of, I can be an older presenting person and maybe I need to carry myself a certain way. And I think I always did that, and without, you know, realizing why. And it probably was a part of it is because I was training to do that at an early age.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
It's weird.
Also, I did not know that job existed, which
I
is
know.
like brilliant.
It's a job. It's like, it'd be the equivalent of a secret shopper, right?
Yes,
I'm sure there's
of course,
tons of
like a
them.
mystery shopper.
Yeah, like a mystery shopper.
Yeah. So that's your first job, which obviously you're...
You weren't expecting that.
Yeah, but I wasn't, but I love it. I absolutely love that. Then you find yourself on a flight to London. Obviously, a lot has happened in between.
And I also bounced around in school a bit. Like I did do, like before I went into uni, I did art school and I loved exploring the creative sides to myself. Like, you know, when it was, there's an Emily Carr Institute in Vancouver. She's a national treasure, Emily Carr anyways, but we got to explore different kinds of paint and different mechanisms and acting, and I mean there was even singing a bit. Like I'm a terrible singer, but anyways I got to like kind of, you know, explore what creative SAB looked like, and I found that really fun. And I was kind of at this point where I was like, oh, I think, do I want to do a bit of that? Do I not? And when I was in uni, I had an agent, Ryan at The Characters, like shout out to Ryan, who got me some gigs and some little commercials and things, which I also found really fun. So I think I knew what I wanted to do, but I also knew that there was this side of myself that I hadn't quite explored yet.
Okay.
So I'm on this flight, I'm going to London. I'm thinking if it doesn't work out, I just go back. Like, Mom, can I sleep on your couch?
Yeah. It's
I gave
okay.
up my apartment. And it would be okay. And also this idea of like being with someone who, you know, is in the industry, I thought, well, is he really gonna like me? I don't know. Like it took me a moment to kind of find my self-worth. And that feels so shit to say, but it's an honest thing to think. I thought somebody in the industry or somebody who was doing that well wouldn't necessarily be interested in somebody like me who didn't even know what path I was gonna take yet. But anyways, you know, we are here now because we did fall in love, very much in love. And I got to, in that time, which I'm so thankful for, explore all these different sides of myself. Like, I think I've tried just about everything I've wanted to try.
But that's so incredible. And do you feel like, you know, meeting Idris and you guys being in the relationship that you're in, do you think that changed the trajectory together? Like, having somebody that believes in you sometimes more than you believe in yourself is like the confidence boost you need.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I would have thought myself quite a confident young woman. But I definitely had, and when I moved to London, extreme self-doubt. Like I found myself constantly picking apart what I was doing. I kind of lost my sense, even my fashion sense to a degree. Like I didn't know who I wanted to be. There was a lot of floral in London when I first moved to London. There was not a lot of floral in Vancouver. I was like, am I supposed to wear florals?
Yeah, that's very British, isn't it? That ditzy print. Right?
Yeah. There's a lot of that, and Vancouver is like Vans and Palace and like skatewear and Lululemons. Lots of Lululemons, right? So I found myself like just this period of rediscovery, and someone who was so confident in me and saw something in me that I didn't see in myself at that time. And I needed that in my life at that time. I'd also just come out of a bad relationship, which what that does to your character and your confidence, I mean,
It's just knock
right?
it, isn't it?
It just knocks it. And I thought, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm lost. I'm traveling. And then I've got this angel in my life who's just like, you can do anything. What do you mean? You want to do it? Try it. And I was like, okay.
But it's such a refreshing outlook when at the time it feels like you're risking it all. You know, you're getting on a flight, you're giving this a go. And for somebody to just say, you've got this.
Yeah. And actually looking back, I was investing in myself, taking that time to travel and get to know myself and meet a new person and fall in love. These are all self-investments, and self-investment is so important. And I can think of it now like that, being a businesswoman, like investing in yourself is just as important as investing in business or an opportunity, because at the crux of it, you are what's going to lift it up, make or break it, right?
You're the brand.
You are the brand. Yeah. Absolutely. And I look at that now as a form of self-investment. And I got to experience things I may not have otherwise been able to, being able to travel with his schedule. And, you know, for me, it was great. Like, he's like, oh, I got to go to Berlin for 2 days. I'm like, lovely. I've never been. Let's do it. And it was such a valuable time in my life, especially doing it with somebody who was so supportive and made me feel like if I fell, I'd have a life support system underneath me. Yeah. And that wasn't necessarily something I could do when I was younger, because we grew up, you know, we weren't wealthy in any way. Like my mom was a single mom raising 5 kids. So you can just imagine that safety net necessarily wasn't there.
Well, everything has to stretch, doesn't it?
Everything has to stretch. And if I were to mess up, it would mean maybe I couldn't help my mom pay rent that month, or, you know, like there was a lot of pressure on us to just get by as a family unit from a very young age. So being in a position where I was like, I don't have to worry about anyone else right now. I'm kind of like on my own, and, you know, I'm doing this with a partner who, it was just a very different place for me. Yeah. It allowed me a sense of freedom that is so privileged, and I feel so honored to say that. And like, it just was a form of expression that I wouldn't have been able to do if I didn't have that kind of mechanism around me.
Let's talk about your love for skincare and how your baby was born, because I mean you have the most incredible skin. I was going to say you can't see this right now, but of course we're on YouTube too, so zoom in, check the skin.
Oh gosh, don't
do. Honestly, you have the best skin I've ever seen.
Coming from you, I'll take it as a compliment.
Well, don't look at mine today.
Everyone knows how good your skin is.
Mine's very menstrual today. It's all about.
No, it's not looking menstrual. It's looking quite fab. But it's funny you say my love for skincare. I always think it's funny when I hear that now, because I do love it, don't get me wrong, but that love stemmed from a frustration.
Yes.
Almost a hate. Like, I was at the point in my life where I had really bad acne as a teenager, and then I had like a nice grace period when I was like, I turned 20 and I was like, oh, it's gone.
My hormones are settled.
Yeah, everything's worked out. And then 26, bang, it was back. And I was
it's
like,
cruel, isn't it?
It's so cruel.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, I forgot about this. And
don't tease me.
I know.
Give me the good stuff.
Exactly. We grew up with like the Neutrogenas and the Clearacells and the Saint-Ives apricot scrub. Do you remember what that was doing?
Oh my gosh, I remember that so well.
And I was of the school of thought, scrub it off, like, you know, and I was doing so much damage to my skin. And I'd go to a derm and I'd get some really strong benzoyl or some Tret right away, and like my skin's super sensitive, and that was really inflammatory for me. And then my hyperpigmentation was like through the roof. So I was at the point where I was like, nothing works. I hate everything. But I'm not going to give up. I'm going to figure out why my skin is going through what it's going through. And it wasn't until I actually had some deep dive thinking time, which was COVID, which I was,
that did that to us.
I like
it?
to look at it like that was some deep dive thinking time, and I did some research.
Eating time too.
Oh yeah, proper eating time for me. I enjoyed that. I don't remember. I don't know if you remember, but I was on Instagram Live like making banana bread and like cooking every day.
Yeah,
I was eating all that stuff. I was cooking.
Well, do you know what? I was pregnant at that time, so it was just and I was like, I'm eating for 2.
Oh my
was
gosh.
a whole thing.
Yeah,
I was embracing that banana bread.
I hadn't even thought about like going through pregnancy at that time. Oh my gosh, you know, it was
a
lot.
That was my last pregnancy, and it was actually my favourite because I actually gave myself a bit of grace because the world had sort of shut down. As much as I was scared, because it was like, if you were pregnant, you were more likely to catch COVID and die. It was basically the headlines. And then also if you were of a black background, that ratio went up some
Yeah.
more. So it was scary. I didn't leave the house. Literally,
Right.
I didn't go to Marvin did all the supermarket, right? I didn't leave, but I just
But
ate.
it probably gave you some time you otherwise wouldn't have had.
Exactly that. It
'cause
gave
you were
me
really
time,
busy
and
as
it
well,
gave me a bit of grace to just be like, lay flat on the sofa. And
Oh, that sounds nice.
it was
though.
quite nice. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'm like, I kind of could do with a little bit of that. Just a mini one.
We don't want it. We don't want it.
Just a mini chill.
We can't go back. So at that point, I started doing some research and looking at what my skin specifically needed. So I knew I was dealing with
Right.
these dark spots. So this is a point where skincare was slightly becoming more democratized in the sense that I could go on YouTube and I could do some like really, really rudimentary studying, right? Like, okay, this is called post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. I know that now. Why am I getting post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation? Just looking at what the difference was that, with melanin-rich skin, that my friends would have a spot, who had less melanin on their skin, and it would go away within a week. And I'm like, how does that make any sense? Why do you only
Why
get
are you
your
not
spot?
getting the dark spot afterwards?
Yeah, exactly.
Or,
And it just like triggered this real urge to just understand skin as a whole. So I'm going through this deep dive, and I come to realizing that melanin-rich skin actually does need a little bit more care. Like, our skin is bougier. I always tell people it's a little bit drier. It can lack ceramide, so it just needs a little bit of
wants that attention.
extra love.
Yeah,
It needs some extra hugs with moisturizer and and ceramides and peptide chains and all the good stuff that everybody else can benefit from. So if you make skincare with melanin-rich skin in mind, you actually get skincare that's better for everyone.
This is what fascinates me, because I'm like, how has nobody got that memo?
Yeah.
Like, how's it taken you to think of this?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you why. Because it is cheaper to formulate for a smaller group of people. If you have a group of people who need more, you can leave them out and save on your bottom line and formulate for people who need less.
Right.
So in a way, we have been seen as niche
Which is just wild.
and not worthy of a proper formulation, which to me was really upsetting because, there are ingredients and solutions out there. There's skincare ingredients that do work, your retinoids, your niacinamides, all your tyrosinase inhibitors and the good stuff that can really help with our issues, but they're only in a dark spot serum.
Right.
It's only after the fact. And in fact, everything else that is in the range leading to that dark spot serum is kind of like a trigger for the inflammation, which then is a cyclical cycle of us like damaging our skin and then trying to treat it with a dark spot remover. So I was just like, can't have any of this. So I recruited a friend.
Okay, I love this. Okay, great.
And this is a good business tip. It's, everything's better in pairs. Two heads are better than one. And I genuinely believe
Couldn't
that.
agree more.
And I found it quite overwhelming. So I said to my friend Jessica, who I think you've met, she's a makeup artist.
Yes.
And she was working at Tom Ford and she was doing like sales for North America at the time. And I was like, you're like my big shop skincare friend. Can you work with me?
I love that.
And she was like, what the hell are you doing?
What does this mean?
She's also blonde haired, blue eyed. So to me, I was like, if it works for you and it works for me, we've cracked the
We're
nut
onto
on something.
something. Yeah.
We're onto something. And we just got super passionate together. And that was kind of what snowballed into us creating this range, which we call a melanin inclusive range. Because people ask us all the time, does that mean it's only for black skin?
See, this is what kind of like, it goes back to the point that you were saying before. No.
Yeah.
If you make it for us, guess what? It's going to help everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
like
not
having,
rocket science.
It's like having damaged hair shampoo. You know, like when you buy the shampoo that's for like the brittle hair.
Yeah.
Everyone can benefit off that shampoo. It just means like your hair might not be as damaged, but it just means it's got some extra good stuff in it, right? Mm-hmm. So we went around telling people that melanin inclusive doesn't mean it's only for melanin rich skin. It means that it is inclusive of melanin rich skin. So it considers the needs of all skin types.
Yeah.
And that, you're right. We were like, why aren't people doing this? And we felt kind of like industry disruptors in a sense to put that as our tagline. And, it's on the bottles now. And I was just so excited. And I don't think I've ever become so passionate about something so quickly. And I think, I'm an esthetician now.
Yes.
And I get so excited about skincare. But it stemmed from a real place of like, I hate skincare. So,
But I
such
think
a
that's
turnaround.
what everybody that I speak to and every woman that's sat in this chair, their passion comes from a problem solver. So a problem they want solving turns into a passion. Like you say, you actually loathe skincare at one point in your life because you just didn't feel it was right. But now your love comes, there's an excitement and a passion for fixing, fixing a gap that now isn't there because you exist.
Which came with also like a massive sense of responsibility because I felt like the second I started hearing other people say, oh my gosh, I get that. That's me. That's my skin. I was like, well, I better get this right.
Make sure.
I to do it justice, because there's a lot of girlies like me who have felt underrepresented, who have felt marginalized by the beauty industry and the wellness industry as a whole. Because I remember even starting on this journey, trying to figure out how I fit into the wellness space.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people that look like us. In fact, you're one of the beauty influencers, one of the only beauty influencers who I felt represented by at the time where I was like, you know, looking through stuff, because there's just not enough representation in this space. Like,
I couldn't agree more. Agree more. And it just doesn't, at some points you do feel like, okay, like I really base it on like events that I go to. We're lucky we get invited to lots of different beauty events, and I'm noticing a change. I'm noticing a shift. I'm noticing we're seeing different faces. But for a while, particularly, I don't know, 5+ years ago, it was like the same faces.
Yeah,
and you know, and I knew there would probably only be me that looked the way that I did in that room. You know? Which I think is really interesting, at the way that the dial is shifting slowly. Yeah. But it is shifting now.
It's true. You go to a yoga class 10 years ago. Yeah. But, you know, I don't think there was any, we would have been the only black girl on there. And something has shifted. And I think a lot of that is representation with people who exploring wellness, looking different. Like wellness is an Eastern philosophy, right?
Giving girls the confidence to know they're not going to be the only girl in that room. I think there's also that, because there's events that, you know, I'm sure a lot of women wouldn't show up because they're going to feel like they're on their own. You know, I think it's really important to make sure the whole room feels inclusive.
Yeah, it's true. And I think that means being inclusive of the different cultures and the beautiful mosaic of what that looks like. Because even at the time when we started the brand, I became really passionate about trying to give narrative to ingredients that I felt were really appropriated. Yeah. Because my mom's telling me, and I've been watching my mom like for ages use turmeric and qasl and all these amazing African ingredients on her face, and then seeing them at Whole Foods, you know, without the faces or the names or the stories of the people who not only farm the ingredients, but have given the ingredients this like sort of generational, you know, heritage that's been passed on, and this ancestral traditions that have been passed on. So we wanted to like reclaim the stories of those ingredients. Yeah. And you'll see like throughout our packaging, we put African hero ingredients on the front. I didn't want to hide them in the back in the formulation. I'm like, I want people to know what moringa is. I want people to know what baobab is. I want people to know what qasl is, an extremely important ingredient to Somalis, you know, and give it that light, because that representation, even from like the words, all of it matters. The faces, the words, the stories. We need to speak and understand each other in ways that, you know, we may have been closed off before, because it's so important.
Exactly. And the only way to do that is storytelling. And you do that so well. I notice on your socials, you're really passionate about it. You really, no, but you feel really, you buy in, because you're so inclusive and you tell that story so well. How did it look for you? Because I know that you recruited your friend, and now that you are this dynamic duo. But what I love and what I think you've done so well is making sure that it's genderless, which I think is very hard.
It was very hard.
And I can only imagine the conversations. How did it look in your house? Because I know that you and Idris are in this together. I feel like it's definitely your baby, but you're in this as a team, right?
Yeah.
How... Is that something that's hard to agree on? Because I can only imagine going, okay, this is a product that I want us both to use and both of us to feel equally as passionate about. How did that look?
No,
you're
so
laughing.
Idris was funny because I'm, you know, I'm laughing genuinely. I'm thinking of that video. There was like a viral TikTok video where this girl walks into her bathroom and her husband's left a few hairs on the bathroom sink. And she's like,
ick. Why did he do this?
What a slob. Look at this guy. And then she keeps walking, and her side of the bathroom's like products everywhere.
We can cope with that mess.
Yeah, that
the beard hair, not so much.
The beard hair? Oh.
No, grim.
I actually did buy one of those like beard hair blower.
Like a leaf blower for the beard.
A leaf blower for the beard, because you can't get them.
And they stick.
They stick.
I'm like, you turn the tap on.
We could do a whole episode on these beard hairs. Seriously.
I'm glad it's not just me.
But so that was Idris's side. Like, he had no product. Stealing my products, by the way. I don't know if he'll ever admit to it, but I'm like, why is my like La Mer empty?
Yeah.
Like, I don't use
the worst for me is like my husband will still like, I'll have really nice shampoo and conditioner in the shower. Yeah. And he'll like just get it out and put it. He's got
use it on
a
their
bald
body
head. He has not a hair on his head. And you're taking like my like hydrating intense shampoo that I pay extra for to look up to make my hair glossy. You got no hair. Yeah,
that's too funny.
It make sense.
Yeah, that'd be like just using my conditioner on his body.
Yeah, what
I was like, it's not body wash.
It's not a thing.
But I kind of, this is what I loved. Okay, so I'm getting into this, you know, love of the science and everything behind skincare, and we're formulating this brand. And we're at the very start, and he goes, what's a toner? You don't need that. Well, I don't want that. I would never use that. I'm like, he's like, what does it tone the color of your skin? I was like, oh, what? And it's just all these like really basic questions. Like, why do you need to use 6 things? Why can't you use 3? I'm like, yeah.
It's got a point.
It was almost like this unlearning I had to do of like the marketing that was out there and things that we've been told to do. And I was like, okay, you got some really interesting point. You want to step in the meeting here?
Yeah.
And he had some like really brand defining point. Like even when you look at how we formulate, like we would never do a single ingredient formulation, or we would never do, first of all, that's wasteful, I think, personally. And why not mix that active with other actives that either help cushion it or help, boost its efficacy? That makes so much more sense. Have a maximum impact formulation and less steps.
Yes.
Right? And then also inclusion should be at a level where you can use it twice a day. They don't irritate your skin. Because this whole idea of like, oh, you use it like once only. He was just like, what's the point? What is this doing to my skin that it is so damaging?
Yeah,
It's like,
I can only use it once.
but it's also because we want that short-term gain, and we don't think of skincare as lifestyle solutions, and part of the thinking around us doing products that sort of help battle post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, I was like, I don't ever want to give somebody a Band-Aid solution.
Yeah.
Here's your dark spot, put this on it and it's gone. No, this is about what are we eliminating from the range? What are we adding to the range so that this provides a lifestyle for that consumer so that they can buy into a process that helps stop that, inflammation from coming up in the first place. So that's like eliminating sensitizing ingredients and getting rid of drying alcohols and fragrances. We don't need fragrances in skincare. And these are a lot of things that he was saying to me in the beginning, like, it should be in a spray. I was like, oh my God, it should be in a spray.
It's almost like, you're so right. When we think of skincare, it can be really overwhelming. It's so complex. Like my cupboard and my, in my bathroom is actually disgraceful. Like it's bursting at the seams.
Yeah.
I love trying it. If I've seen something on Instagram, guess what? I'm going to click the link and I'm
Yeah.
just going to give it. That is me. And I wish I wasn't such a product junkie, but I am. But actually, I suppose what he's helped you do is simplify it.
Yeah, men think
and streamline
efficiency.
it. Yes.
Whereas we haven't been conditioned to think efficiency in our skincare. We've been conditioned to think I need more.
Because we
more
consume
and more
everything.
and more.
And I suppose if you're not doing that, you're like, can't we just use this? Won't this one thing help?
Yeah, exactly. And I loved that about him. So even the packaging, the way it's formed, like he always like, I want to find it in my gym bag, so we could pull it out and it's this long shape. And the brand sort of naturally evolved to be this genderless brand because skincare is skincare. For men, they can use our products. They've gotten away with it for a long time. Like it doesn't need to be an invigorating or energizing or libido boosting product. Like
it's just so salesy, isn't it? It's
salesy.
like it becomes that tool to say, okay,
exactly.
Maybe I should buy this because this one's for men. But
yeah,
skin
the
is
second
skin.
he realized he didn't have to use like an astringent like alcohol after he shaves, he was like, you're right. Why am I burning my face off? I was like, we could do this together.
Yes.
So this duo became a trio. And it was, Sable was born. And we didn't really know how passionate and how far we would get into it. But as we were developing it, we were having the time of our lives. Like this was like probably one of the best things I've ever done. And people always say like, business is hard. Business is hard, but when it's fun,
Well, I was actually discussing this with another guest actually, and we were saying that actually business is really hard. So unless you have something that you're completely passionate about, the thing that you're like, no, this is the why. This is why I'm doing this. Yeah, because that side of it can be hell. Yeah. So you need to be able to make sure the fun is there somewhere, at least on those days when it doesn't feel so fun. You remember the fun.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also, I think, because we do, if you're going to do business, I think the best entrepreneurs are people who completely divulge or indulge themselves in whatever it is that they're pursuing. Like skincare just became my day and night. Like everything, every moment was, I'm going to try that. And I benchmarked everything. So I was like, I spoke to people and like put myself out there, in a way that I probably wouldn't before. Like I was like, I'm just going to message Charlotte Tilbury. I know her. So I'm just going to be like, hey, Charlotte, can I have some advice? And you've got to do, like when you're starting a business, community is your biggest asset. Ask all the questions to all the people. It is invaluable. If you have the privilege of being in the proximity of somebody who has done it, ask.
And that's such a good takeaway because I think we, like you say, you put yourself out there and the way that you say it, you cringe, don't you? You're like,
I know.
Oh my God, I'm asking her if she minds to give me a little bit of advice.
I know.
But it's so important to do so and not having any embarrassment or leaving your ego at the door and just asking all the questions.
Yeah,
Like,
so
you know, I
great.
get messages with people asking me certain things. I never think, why are they asking me that? I'm
Yeah,
like, oh my gosh,
it's so
try
true.
this, do that. And it's kind of, when you are somebody that is passionate and you're an entrepreneur, you actually love when people ask you those questions, and it feels quite a privilege that people see you in that light.
You're so right. It is totally, but we never think about it
No.
when it's to us. And
No.
I hadn't actually quite thought about that, because I'm like, pass it on, give. Like, please tell me, what do you need? But if I was the person asking, I'd be like, oh, okay, I
Yes.
guess I'll message. Oh, they're going to hate me. Oh, I don't know. They're never going to talk to me again. Like, what? No, why do we think that?
And they don't reply.
Exactly.
But you should just ask all the questions. And I think I learnt that early on, like, just to be a sponge in the room and ask, because actually, you know, when your skill is, people don't expect you to be good at everything.
Yeah.
So when your skill is the creative, which is what mine was, and that kind of like execution of bringing a brand to light and, you know, fixing a problem that I felt wasn't there, that's what I love. Everything else, like, I had to ask questions of, okay, what does this mean for shelf space? Like, I don't understand this. Or under the light, will this logo read? It was all those questions that I didn't actually know the answer to, because guess what? I'd never done it before. So
Right.
it's okay to ask.
Right.
No one's going to think she's stupid. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
They want to help.
It's so true. And we had so many questions. I mean, down to being, you know, both philanthropists and humanitarians and working to fight climate change as like a side hustle.
Yeah.
I mean,
Big side hustle, girl.
Big side hustle. I was like, I don't also want to put more product out into the world. How do I do this in a way that isn't going to contribute to this climate crisis? Like, you know, we had so many questions. And what I didn't realize is, when you are going into business or starting a venture, you need to learn so many different sides of the business. You know, whether that be the finance or the creative was actually something that I found quite difficult.
Right.
Like, how do you market this past being a celebrity brand, which we hated the idea of it being boxed into
so hard.
It's so frustrating. And I was like, I want this creative to speak for itself without having to lean on images of us. And in the beginning, there was a bit of that. And it was like, no, we don't even have investors. This is self-funded, family-owned. You know, this isn't what people are calling a celebrity brand. They're calling it that because there is a lack
because you're
of
celebrities. That's where it stops.
But I also think that's turned into a term to express, oh, they don't really know what they've launched. They've just launched, they put their face behind something. And we were like, we are so not that, you know? Like,
it's the worst pushback for me. That is the thing that I'm
frustrating.
just like, oh, and it was really important to me, probably the same with you, that it wasn't, and I got advice at the time, people were like, you should call this Baby by Rochelle Humes. And I'm like,
right.
No, because it's not, this is bigger than me. I want this, this is its own, you know, it needs its own existence. This isn't about, I'd actually love it when people say to me, oh my gosh, I've used this for years and I didn't know this was yours.
Exactly.
That's the biggest compliment to me. So
and
I'm
it was
like,
almost like people were being told, no, you can only launch business if you're not in this category. You're not in the, like, you know, and it was like, everyone should be able to launch anything they want. As long as they do it with integrity and they do it because they're passionate about it, then it doesn't matter who launches it. If they're providing a solution or they see a white space, that is the point of this world. Like, if somebody feels creative and they want to fill a gap, do it.
Exactly
like, you know, that's how we get
that.
some of the best contributions to society, is when people feel they really have something meaningful to give. So it's a bad idea to think, let's just like tell certain group of people they can't launch things, or, you know. And I understand that people are frustrated, and why it's gotten to that point is because they're frustrated with people who do put brands out.
Yes.
And we don't have to name them all, but people like Brad Pitt, I'll put it out there, you know, who launch brands who may not necessarily care about the brand or the industry that they're launching into. And then it becomes this sort of ingenuine relationship between the founder and the brand that the audience can see through right away.
And I think that's what it is right there. Like, you know, we are in 2025. People can see through something that is just an ad and just an op versus something that
also,
is like...
I really like Brad. Like, don't...
Oh, we love Brad. We love Brad.
I love you, Brad, but like, come on.
Come on now, Brad. But you can see it. You know if it's something that it is sincere, and you know if it's so ingrained in somebody. And I think that is what is so visible to you.
Yeah, and I think your choice of words to the press shouldn't be, I don't really care about this, but I've done it, you know? And that actually can be quite damaging to people who do want to launch and have done it with the right passion and the right integrity, and haven't just put their face to something because they really wanted to. And actually, when you're talking about the beauty industry, and people always say, oh my gosh, so many celebrities have launched beauty, but they're people who glam all the time, who understand products, who need to take care of their skin. Like, you know, sometimes you can get some really valuable insights.
And you know, it goes hand in hand, like you say, and they're also surrounded by industry experts and leaders. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And people that have access to the right information. So I think it
also,
does...
I'm gagged that we're putting me in this category. Can I just say that? For
you are fully in this category.
Do I get to be a celeb now?
Isn't it just the worst word too?
It's the worst word. It is the worst word. But
I cringe every time anyone says it to me.
Funny thing, isn't it?
What does your day... Because I'm always interested in this because, I'm sure I probably can predict your answer and you're going to tell me how varied it is. But what does your day-to-day run-in look like of the business? What do you do? What are break down the roles for me and how it works?
Yeah, so I am the acting CEO of the brand. So I will do all the, coming in, which balancing as being a founder CEO, that's a bit different because you're coming in, you're contributing to almost all sectors, right? You're giving your sense on what the creative should look like, helping dictate the marketing calendar, everything from the socials to what are the data, what are we getting back from our emails?
Yeah.
It is really the day-to-day running, and Idris can come in and also help from a creative perspective and say, I think the brand should lean more this way, or I think this will be a bit more disruptive. But it's interesting being a founder CEO, I've found, because you're also expected to not only guide the company to a success in terms from a business standpoint, but also from a cultural standpoint, because you are the face of the brand. And for me, watching other founders in that space doing that, I've always been like massively impressed by people like Haley and say what you want, but she's built this massive
you can't argue with
industry
that.
And how she's been able to kind of shape culture and her brand's doing well at the same time. Generally, those would have been two different things. You have the founder feeding in, and then you have the CEO running the business. But Haley's like all hands on deck on her business.
Yeah.
And I don't think enough people know that about her, but she's really in the rooms. And living in that space is a lot of pressure, but I love it. I think to be able to kind of have your word be, this is what I want to do. I think we should really do it. Yeah, that ricochet effect is really, it's exhilarating, actually.
But also, on the flip side, it's all encompassing.
It's all encompassing.
In a way that you can't escape.
Yeah. And I actually have had to try and figure out how I fit into the brand, because I don't also want to be necessarily the face of the brand. Like Haley has done an amazing job with Road. She is the face of the brand in a sense. Like we never wanted that for Sable, because I think there's so many faces that I wanted to represent. Like mine is like the least of it, it was a different concept. Like it wasn't like look like me. It was, this is for you and people who look like me,
right.
Like this is for all of us. This is for us. So how I had to try and think to separate.
Yeah, that's really hard. Yeah. Because the problem is you have found that problem. So of course it's you, but it's for people like you. So how do you do that? What's the strategy? Okay, I'll sit back.
Well, no, I say that sigh comes from I don't know if we've fully discovered it yet. And we are still a baby brand. But for me, it was like the brand's always going to be about the faces of the people who we look to serve. And whether that is, the melanin inclusive face, the face of the guy who doesn't really understand why he's using the skincare, but someone bought it for him. Which is another thing to say about genderless brands, right? Women will be buying products for men. That is, men aren't necessarily going to the website and buying it. So you're genderless, but you are always kind of in the majority of the women's space. Yeah. And then selling to men alongside, right? That is a very hard thing, which you pointed out to do. And then, it's a woman who didn't know what melanin inclusive skincare was. Maybe she looks like Jess. She wants to try something new. Like it's just sort of highlighting all those different faces. And we do like the Sable Face series. We love to shoot gorgeous faces as you would for any brand, but highlight them as being part of our community as opposed to being our models.
Right.
If that makes sense. Yeah. Something that we really want to do is invite our customers to come to our photo shoots.
Oh, love that.
And
That's
I think,
great.
Yeah. And I think for us, why wouldn't we actually highlight the community? And a lot of the models who we have approached are people who use the products. Yeah. Right. So it's just this difference in thinking of it's aspirational still, but aspirational in a way because you feel like you're part of a community that is changing the narrative and growing. It's
like a community you want to be part of.
Yeah, yes. I think so. And for us, community has been everything. And I really felt it when we went to this gorgeous event called Black Beauty Beat in the UK, which you probably may have heard of now. And I was like, we had this booth and I was like, oh my gosh, you guys, we're next to Fenty and Hourglass and MAC and massive brands. Is this worth the investment? I do want to do it. We did it last year. It was great. We were the busiest booth. Wow. And because events like that, what they're really good at doing is highlighting community and what the brands who have served the community will serve back. So for us, like, we know how valuable that is, and we do awareness at the community level all the time. Like, we haven't really invested in, you know, the big billboards and the ads and the guerrilla marketing on the streets, because for us, that investment comes into, I want to throw a yoga class for, you know, 10
we're
of
the
my
same, by the
customers.
way. My kids' brand, we've never paid for out of house marketing ever. And I think obviously we've been beneficial that, you know, in the same way, like you say, you want to separate yourself, but I've managed to use that to kind of elevate it, which is a privilege. But at the same time, it's been about customer facing events, influencer events. And when I say influencer, it's not just like the celebrities and the VIP, it's people that are customers and they are using the products. And I think, like you say, the community is there. If you're giving to it, it's going to give back. And it's such a beautiful thing, isn't it? And like at the same time, you're growing a loyal community because you're serving people continuously. It's not just, hey, I'll see you once and then I'll never see you again. It's, no, come to this event next time, stay on our email chains. We want to keep serving you because you have kept us and grown us to a degree. How do you handle new product development? Because this is always something.
That's my favorite thing.
Is it?
Yeah.
And I think it's something that really kind of evolves, isn't it? Because when you start your initial range, at the time you're like, this is it. Yeah. This is everything. This is what people need, and that's that. But then there always comes, no, hang on, now we need this. It's so funny how set on something you can be, and then you're like, no, now this product has got its purpose.
Oh, it's so true.
But when you're trying to streamline skincare for a community, for every gender, and you feel like you've got it, and you take those notes from Idris, and you're like, we just need one of these. How do you
make some money?
How do you make some no, because it's kind of hard to grow because you're saying this is what we need, but actually we want growth too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love this conversation because we do actually talk about it a lot in-house. For us, we launched with a 3-step system, and it was all you needed if it was all you wanted, you know, like to fight hyperpigmentation, to fight inflammation, for skin barrier support, all of these like lovely things encompassed in these 3 products, the cleanser, moisturizer, toner. So how we grew from there, every product mattered. We were never a brand of abundance. We couldn't just put things out to put them out. But luckily, we're not, you know, in a retailer that's pushing us to do that. We're a small brand. We don't have investors breathing down our neck. So we could really take our time and craft products and look at our NPD in a way that was really, really considered. So we never launch anything without it being like tried and tested between all our friends, our family, like talking to our community, which is another great asset in MPD, and people don't think about that enough, like sending samples out and things, like not even in a way to market it on social, just genuinely asking.
Focus group.
The focus group, right? The focus community. And now for me, for instance, the next product that we launched after that was the mask. And I knew we needed a way to exfoliate because that was something that we were missing in our range. And the mask to me was like my mom in a bottle. Like it was literally the thing that she wore on her face every day. So I knew I wanted to, from an African botanicals perspective, highlight that product. And we always go botanical first. Like for me, and that's how we came to our serum at, just this last February, which was an okra serum, and people were like, okra, how did you think okra would do in skincare? And I'm like, because these antioxidants are unbelievably powerful. The ones that grow in Africa are the strongest in the world because the climates are so harsh. So it makes sense that we go and look and scour the content for these amazing ingredients. So we always think, what's that powerful antioxidant? What are the hero antioxidants that are really going to make a difference to skin? Because I genuinely believe, especially us living in London, all the pollutants and the aggressors outside, antioxidants is one of your most important forms of skincare. It's one of the things that should be in every formula without a doubt. So let's use African antioxidants. They're super powerful. So we get to sit and think and have these group meetings of like, did you hear of this one? Did you hear of this one? Oh my gosh, my auntie. Our favorite thing to say, auntie. Because the aunties know. Yes. The aunties are right. And
they've
actually
been doing this.
Our tagline is always like incorporating some sort of, idea around tradition or preserving tradition, or like auntie's always right, mom's always right, or not your auntie's okra. Like these are things that we've incorporated into the brand. Because we genuinely have these conversations of like, oh, what did she say? Like, oh, that ingredient? Oh, I haven't heard of that. And we love formulating around that. And we've got like some amazing ingredients that we've got coming out down the pipeline. But then it's also intentionally when's the best time to launch those, as you know, right? On the calendar from not only an economic standpoint in terms of when can we afford to launch it, but also You don't want to be too behind in trends. You don't want to feel like you're following. You want to feel like you're changing things and being disruptive in the market. Like, I mean, these are my favorite conversations. And I think luckily in our niche kind of way of formulating, we're always going to feel like disruptors because we're using ingredients and putting them on the front of bottles that people are like, huh?
Yes.
What's that? And I think also thinking in this way of efficient skincare and everything matters really does allow us to put the proper integrity behind these products. And it's so well thought out, like everything from like, how are those actives going to feel when they're cushioned with these? Like even our toner is a great example. Like I know vitamin C and E and ferulic acid is kind of like the holy grail, but because vitamin C is cushioned by vitamin E and then ferulic acid boosts its efficacy, like these are ingredients that should be formulated together because they're so much better formulated together. So we sit and have these amazing benchmark conversations. We get to go to Africa, find the communities that we source the ingredients from, because
so brilliant.
But it's also so fulfilling because for us, like, you know, we never wanted to contribute to a supply chain that was damaging to communities and people. And now we get to show brands there's another way to do this sourcing. You can get your raw materials in a way from, you know, that's sustainable from small communities and smallholder farmers, because you're getting a better quality of cold pressed whatever ingredient. Especially every farmer will tell you mine's the best, right? Like, I remember we were looking for mungongo oil one time and someone's like, no, ours is the best. Don't go to that community because they don't know. But they put passion behind these ingredients, and it's not just like third partied and middleman. By the time it gets to you, there's probably child labor involved. Like, no, like these are the things. It's 2025. Like, can we just not have child labor in our beauty products, like just to make us feel more moisturized, you know? And these are things we've become super passionate about as a brand, and all of those things contribute to our NPD and how we think and progress. And when we find a community that inspires us, sometimes that's the cusp to think of a new product launch. And I'm so excited for our next one. We have one launching in April, which is like, my heart beats like da 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 da.
It's so exciting, isn't it?
When
you know that new launch is coming up, it's like you just live and breathe it until that moment that everybody
and we're
can
a little
shop it.
maybe behind on this one but this is our community going, why do you not have this? Why do you not have this? Okay, we got it, guys.
We got there. It's coming.
Exactly.
But I think, like you say, that is what is so liberating when you don't have that kind of pressure from a retailer or outside investment. You can actually take your time and do something that you know. Yeah,
I don't think people realize how much retailers dictate trends. You know, when you see all your favorite brands launch a blush at the same time, there's a reason for that, you know. Blush is really in.
Yeah, exactly.
And also that can be quite scary for young brands when a retailer could be telling other brands about your NPD. You might have an amazing idea, and then all of a sudden you see it's like 5 other brands are launching it at the same time. It's because, you know, it's
because those conversations not just happening with you. Yeah, that is a hard thing to navigate.
It's a hard thing to navigate, but you know, you set that off with the privilege of being in some of these massive retailers in terms of the footfall and the eyes on the brand. So yeah.
Yes, it is. It does. It's the balance of it all, but it can be amazing, but that can also be quite challenging.
Yeah.
I want to talk about something that I know is very close to your heart, and I can tell that it's just weaved into everything you do with the brand and both you and Idris. I want to talk about you being a Goodwill Ambassador and how that came about. And I mean, it feels so obvious when I hear you talk.
I'm like,
Yeah. I mean, it's a big old deal.
It is something I'm super passionate about. It's probably the thing that brings me the most joy in life. And it's funny because I watched my mom do, you know, like she was always an activist. She was always a philanthropist. And she'd go back to Somalia, and she had the Hoya Madian Foundation from when I was very young, where she'd bring water to communities who didn't have access to water. And I used to hate it when I was younger. I'd be like, why are you leaving for like 2 months again? Right. Why are you leaving for like 3 months again? Yeah. Like, and she was just like, you know, we have to give back. You have to give back. And also she instilled in me this very strong identity of being a proud African woman and being one of the only Black women in Vancouver. It's not very diverse. And the only Black girl in my high school. Like, I had to kind of fight the idea of, you know, the trauma porn that was on TV at the time, starving Africans and the such, and show people, no, actually Africans are super hardworking. Like, just meet my family. Like, you know, like this is these stereotypes. Like, no one's waiting for a handout. People are never in these positions because they want to be. You know,
Absolutely,
people find
yeah.
themselves in these positions because of whatever has happened in the world. And 9 times out of 10, when you're talking about the climate conversation and climate refugees, this isn't even a problem that they created. This is the global north contributing to a problem so heavily that it's affecting people in the global south to the point where they don't know what they're going to grow next year because the rains have changed so much. You know, like climate crises is happening in Africa like now. So it was this really wanting to change narratives about African people and then give back, because I think if you're in a position to give back, you always should. So my mom was like a massive influence in my life, and I'm really proud to be able to say, you know, I'm a Goodwill Ambassador now for an agency which I love, and the EFAD, which is the agency that I work with in the UN, you know, they work with smallholder farmers, and they believe that, you know, rural communities can be uplifted by agricultural practices, because you're not just giving someone a handout, you're teaching them how to take care of themselves, to literally grow food off the land that they live on. And that's invaluable, you know, knowledge for people when they don't know when their next meal is coming. If you can grow your own food, then you can build that up, you can sell that. And also showing the next young billion, which is going to be a massive population boom out of Africa, that the rural lifestyle is one of economic value, and that you could go back and you don't have to go to these urban areas, which then lead to, you know, some of these climate change conversations that we're having. People want to see Africa transition, but it needs to happen in a way that doesn't make the same mistakes the global north has had, right? So we need to use the arable land, and it just bleeds into so many things. I think that's why I was so passionate about that agency. Is agriculture is so much more than growing food.
Of course it is. It's almost like you say, instilling that entrepreneurial value. Like it's kind of like it bleeds into that same conversation, changing the narrative. Yeah. And actually, I suppose the narrative that everybody else sets, which is kind of hard to fight, because like you say, mainstream media, particularly when you were younger, make things look a completely different way.
Yeah, like people are waiting for handouts, but when women can take care of themselves, trust me, they will. They'll also take care of their children and the community behind their, like, that's on their back, you know? Like, people want to work, and Africans that I've met, like the rural people across the global south in general, like just want to work. Also, when you get to talk about, you know, land rights and gender opportunities for women in these agricultural areas, like, a lot of times we go to some of these field visits and it's the women working with the kids on their back, and I'm like, where are all the guys? Yes, you know, like women really do carry these communities, and it's true what people say: you feed a girl, you feed a city, you feed a country, you feed a nation. Right?
So true.
So true.
It's so true. I want to do the rocket round now, which is always my favorite. We ask our guests the same set of questions, and it's bizarre. Everybody's answer is always a little bit different.
Okay. I'm glad I haven't looked yet then.
Right. Okay. So it's quick fire, essentially.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can do it, because me and you like to talk. And the first question is, what are the non-negotiables, do you feel, when launching a business?
Ooh. Okay.
Hard.
I think, that is actually a hard one. But for me, it would be, you have to be passionate about what you're launching, as we spoke about earlier. And I wouldn't launch anything unless I had the right support behind me. In terms of, I'm not talking about financial support. I'm talking about who are the people in your life who are going to, you know, care for you mentally, emotionally, and also from a knowledge perspective, help support this venture that you're going into that you may not or may know everything about, or you don't know until you speak to other people.
Yeah, that's very fair. You need somebody to kind of drop the balls, pick up the balls that you're dropping.
I needed a lot of emotional support when I launched, for instance. People don't talk about that. Like, I really needed my siblings so that I could be like, I'm so frustrated. And
the tears,
I know now that I couldn't have done what I did without my family.
That's so nice. But it's so, you're right, it's so important, and whether it's family or friends, but having that little sort of safety net underneath for you is always important. When did you first realise that you were truly launched? Has there been a moment?
Yeah, you know what? There was one. I was like on the Today Show.
Wow, that's huge. Yeah, that's a moment.
I think until then we had been like, go, head down almost. And you're just like, go. And we're on the Today Show. And I was like, wow, I just did that. And I was talking about, like, oh my God, I can't believe I did it.
This has all come out of the meeting. Yeah.
And then I sat with my team after that meeting, and we all came, because obviously it was a big deal for us. So we're literally all there, our small team of 5. We're all there. And they're just like, we did it. And we had this moment of, we've really launched, and look at us, we're on the Today Show. People know who we are. Like Hoda knows who we are.
Brilliant. That
really
that
nice.
feeling you just want to bottle. That moment of like,
yeah,
all of those meetings, all of those research chats, all of that, you know.
And look at what we just did. Yeah.
Love that.
That's
Love that.
nice.
What do people usually seek your advice or help for?
Ooh, I do get a lot of like makeup or beauty in general, or like, oh, your skin looks so nice, or which isn't a good one for me now.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you want this? I can direct you to the website.
Yes, exactly. I'll send you the link.
But I do actually genuinely probably get asked about, which to me is like so humbling. And I'm like, damn, people think like I looked nice that day. Great. Happily tell you all of that. I hope now that people do feel like I would love to pass on business. So any young entrepreneurs, if you have business questions to ask me, please ask. That's like one of my favorite things to talk about.
Love that. It's so important, like you say, because it's the questions that we want answered too,
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
What brand do you wish that you'd founded?
Ooh. Oh my gosh. So many. I'm trying to think like what's a more recent one that I love. I really, and this is going to sound maybe a bit niche, but I love Necessaire.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's something about, and they, we never really see behind the curtains on how long they work to get to the point. But I feel like when they came on the market and disrupted body for me in a sense, where it was like, let's care for our body the same way we care for our faces. I was like, ooh, I really like that. I love their packaging. I love the aesthetic. You know, it's a good, to me, it's a good brand. It's one of many. There's so many good brands.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, because
and
even that statement is so powerful. You're like, why haven't we been doing that?
Why have we not been doing that?
They've made us ask questions.
Bars of soap.
Which is great. Yeah. Smart. If you could choose one female figure as a mentor, past or present, who would it be?
It would probably be Michelle Obama. I love that queen so
She's
much.
a queen, isn't she?
If not her, maybe actually someone like Keke Palmer.
Yes. Okay.
I love Keke. Excuse me.
That was.
I love her so much I choked.
It was quite the gear change, but I love it. Yeah.
It's a good balance.
It's a really good
Michelle
balance.
Obama, because she just has this way of just making life look easy.
Yes.
And you know it hasn't been easy for her. She's obviously been through so much and has done so much in her like young life. But she just does it with a smile and a laugh. It's the energy.
Yeah.
And she's so charismatic and so funny. So funny. I was just watching her recent press tour for her new film. And I was just like, I love this person. Yeah. I genuinely want to support anything and everything she does.
It's like the confidence.
Yeah. Someone was saying that like the Hot Wings guy has a crush on her. I'm like, I have a crush on her. She needs to know I have a crush.
We have a crush on her. Yes.
And then Michelle, obviously, for like just someone with so much grace and so much wisdom and like almost beyond her years. And she's obviously had the opportunity to be in the rooms and at the tables that shape this world. Yeah. And I think she would just have so much knowledge to share and pass on. She makes it look easy,
doesn't she?
She also does. I know. And
which you know it wouldn't have been.
Head up high, no matter what. Like that was her famous slogan, right? Like they go low, we go high. Yeah. Right? I think.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Did we get that the right way around? That's right. Should be proud.
we go low. No.
And lastly, if you could trade one of your current skills for a superpower that would help your business, what would it be and why?
I would trade. Okay, well, I know what I want.
Yeah.
I would want to be able to understand the financial part. I want the superpower of making really good Excel sheets.
Yes.
That's what I want.
I just want my brain to think in a different way.
Yeah. All the numbers. Like my COO can make an Excel sheet that could run a small country.
Honestly.
And I'm just like looking at her with awe. Like I'm like, how did that
with her eyes closed? Yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean, she's great. We stole her from but she was like
good steal.
She was at Uniqlo, she was at Crabtree and Evelyn, and like I love her. I don't think I could honestly do this business without her. But what I would trade for that, sometimes I think I am way too inquisitive. Like I ask too many questions. And the reason I think that can sometimes be a bad thing is I'm always setting a new, like, oh, I'm not satisfied with what we did. Because look at it, like, why couldn't we have done that? Oh, I'm not well, why couldn't we have done? And it's always like this, like, it would be nice to sometimes maybe just be satisfied. And be like,
But I do think that's in every entrepreneur.
Yeah,
rather
maybe.
than being like, we've got to this milestone. Okay, this is amazing. We've done this and acknowledge
like,
it.
what can we do more?
You're
What can we
way
do more?
on to
What
the
can we
next
do
thing.
more?
Yeah. That's what keeps
absolutely.
it moving, girl.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
but
true.
if you've got it in abundance, you can have a little bit.
Exactly.
To
Maybe
be
I
better
can
at the
just give
finances.
half of it away.
Yes, I'm with
I'd
you on
happily
that.
trade.
I think it's a part of your brain that either kind of shines or doesn't. Like genuinely,
Yeah.
the finance part of my brain is not switched on. Like the lights are on, no one's
I
home.
know.
It's
and
not
it's really
happening.
one of the things that like my mom will be like, what do you mean? Like she does that weird African math where she can like do times tables with her hands. Like she learned in school. I'm like, I don't know what you're doing. And she's like, how do you not get that? And she can like answer a math question like that. Like,
Yeah, I think it's
like-
never like it's something that I wish I leaned into a lot more at school because I'm kind of suffering.
yeah, I need to see the words.
I'm a visual person.
I'm a visual
Put it on
person.
an
I need to
aesthetic mood
see
board and I
it.
might understand it.
100%. Math by Pinterest.
Every episode we get our guests to leave a tip,
Yes.
which we kind of want to be something tangible, something that our listener could take away. So if you had one piece of advice for a lady looking to launch,
Yeah.
what would it be?
You know, people who know me or have listened to interviews I've done before will probably know what I'm going to say, but I always think it's so important to use your voice and to not be afraid to use your voice. I think for me, having that imposter syndrome, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, I think it definitely kind of maybe shapes us the right way in terms of we should always think we can do more. We don't know enough. We should always be willing to learn is the right way to say it. But I was definitely afraid to ask some of the questions I should have asked. I was definitely afraid to speak up when I thought something was wrong because I was like, I'm not the expert. What do I know? You know, those little bits of self-doubt.
Am I good enough?
Am I
Do
good
I know enough?
It's so important to use your voice. No question is a stupid question. Okay, there's some stupid questions, but most questions are not stupid questions. Just ask. Just ask everyone and anyone. Say everything you're thinking because you might be thinking something that you may think is insignificant, but other people are inspired by.
Yeah.
So use your voice. But don't be afraid to use it.
That's a great tip. Lastly, when I set out this podcast,
I don't want it to be over.
I don't want it to finish. I don't want it to
Can't
be
we just stay?
But this is good. You'll like this.
Okay.
And this could extend into our next date.
Okay, I love that.
So, I like to ask everybody how they spend their lunch hour. Because we talk about ladies who launch, but ladies who lunch. So how do you spend your lunch hour? What do you do? Where are you? And
This is
what
gonna
are
be
you
so
eating?
sad. I work lunch.
That's okay.
I'm always at work lunch because lunch is the best opportunity to either have a meeting or to work. I also, you know, something's really embarrassing about me. I eat in like lots of little small meals throughout the day.
Okay.
So I don't think anyone's ever had a Zoom call with me without me eating. Like I genuinely, and I've almost just become like
Yeah.
not
You're like,
embarrassed
is
about
it
it anymore.
rude that I'm doing this or not? Because I do that. I'm like, sorry, I'm just eating on the call.
Yeah. But you know what? I've just like, I love it. I think it's a thing that's hung over from me from uni because I would study and snack.
Okay.
So I find I focus more
Need a
if
bit
I've
more
just
fuel.
got something in my mouth.
So snack of choice.
I'm thinking, okay, this is not good. I'm like a massive crisps person. Yeah, I'm saying crisps now to all my Canadian friends. Sorry, chips. I like chips.
You're in London now, girl.
I know, I'm a London girl now. But I'm a massive crisp person and I will have crisps more than one time a day. And you know what? I'm just going to admit that because
fine.
my day starts off like this, okay? I'm super healthy in the morning.
Yeah.
Got my shake. Got my
Okay.
things.
Yeah.
By the end of the day, I have Haribo's on my lap. Like, I don't know what
Balance.
happened from A to Z, but I start off with the right
Start with the
intention.
best intentions for the day.
And
ahead.
I've actually just decided I was supposed to do it January 1st. Nobody starts these things January 1st,
No.
okay? This was my New Year's resolution to do an anti-inflammatory diet because I do want to, and I've just started doing like more NAD injections and stuff like that. I want to do a turnaround on my thinking around inflammation internally. So I'm going to test myself, you know, as if I'm going to preach this advice, I want to do it to myself and do an anti-inflammatory diet. So I just ordered from a food company a bunch of anti-inflammatory diets because I don't have time to cook as
Yeah,
much
so
as
like
I'd
the meal
to.
prep it will make it easier.
The meal prep will make it easier. And this is why it's the crisps and the Haribo, because I think people forget when you're doing business, like, oh, girl, I wish I had the time to make that like tuna chopped salad thingy that you found on TikTok. Like, I'm exhausted when I get home.
Yeah.
And most of the times I'm like at the office and it's a Deliveroo or it's like, you know, so this is going to encourage me to make some smarter choices. So admit it when you're not got it and try and get it, you
It's
know,
so
like I
true.
just got to admit it first.
What are your favorite crisps?
Salt and vinegar always.
Good.
But let me put you on to something, okay?
I'm
Every
always
time I
ready.
go to Canada, I come back with these crisps.
So, hang on, so we're going to be able to get them before you put me
I will bring you some.
Okay,
no,
okay.
but I do think we should start like a petition or something to have them here.
You started it. We're here.
Because there's a flavor that should be here. There's three Canadian flavors that are not in the UK that should be here. Okay, I sound like the Christmas expert.
Snowballing.
This is snowballing. But salt and vinegar is what I get here because that's like my go-to. So I do, I guess, love a vinegary thing. We have in Canada a dill pickle crisp.
Oh.
I know.
Okay, that's quite niche.
Think about it. The crunch, the vinegar, the pickly.
Yeah, I like pickle.
There's a spicy dill pickle.
Okay.
Right? When I first had
that
this,
sounds
it
like
was
what
the
I would want when I was
best thing I've ever
pregnant.
had.
That's giving craving to
so
me.
good. I cannot wait to bring you a bag. I'm going to send it to your house.
Yes.
They're so Moorish. We also have ketchup chips in Canada.
Okay.
Which makes sense.
I
You
feel
have
like
fries.
I feel like
with
we
ketchup.
had them at some point here. I feel like Walker's might have done a
Yeah,
ketchup thing.
but it's a thing. It should be. It's like logical.
Makes
and
sense.
then we have all dressed, which is a mix of like barbecue and salt and vinegar in mine. It's like just seasoning.
that sounds like I'd love that.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'm going to put you onto something here.
Okay.
Bougie crisp.
Yes.
This is really escalated, guys. We're doing this. We're doing it. We're here. Kettle chips.
Okay.
Chili. They're like
I
chili
do
and
love the
sour
kettle chips.
cream.
Oh yes.
They're red bag.
Yeah. I do love the chili sour cream.
They're like my OG crisps.
sick.
Bit
sick
of dip.
crisp.
Bit of hummus.
Yogurt. Have you ever had them with yogurt?
No.
Just with Greek yogurt.
Tonight.
So
That's my
good.
plan.
This
You're
is
welcome,
bad.
listeners.
No, but we're gonna encourage you to. I'm having carrots tonight, okay? Carrots.
Tonight we're just doing broccoli. And that's how we spend our lunch hour. I've loved this so much. I thought this was going to span into where our next date was going to be, but it sounds like we're just going to come to my house on the sofa and have some crisps.
That sounds like the best hangout
Let's go.
ever. You know what?
Okay.
We don't do that in London enough. You know what I love about Canadian thinking? Maybe because it's cold. We're like, can I come over?
Be cozy. Yeah.
Cozy. I just want to come over. Like, we don't have to go to Chiltern.
No.
I'll just come over and
Just put our
watch Mean
PJs
Girls
on.
with you.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
I
ready
love
when
that.
you are. Thank
I
you
love
so
that.
much. I've
Thank
loved it.
you.
That was so nice, wasn't it? Don't forget to follow us on Apple and Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, because next week we're going to be talking to another incredible lady who launched. Or if, like me, you're a watcher, don't forget to follow us on YouTube and please like and subscribe.